All right, hello everyone. This is Ian Gilliam, and I am the sound designer for Into the Beautiful North. And I want to talk to you a little bit about my design, both the design that would have been had we put this on stage, but also talk a little bit of how I took stuff from that design and brought it in for turning it into this Zoom play that we put together. So here we go. Let's start. I wanted to start with the inspiration. So, as I was reading the script, some of the things that really came out to me was it kind of read like a movie script. It had that kind of style with it. Another big thing about it was that it changes locations a lot, which is not terribly normal for a theatrical production, but it is very common in a film situation because you can make cuts. So, um, it also draws. The plot itself is based off of the Magnificent Seven, which is based off of the Seven Samurai. Both of these are well-known films. They're from their own golden ages, and so I wanted to pull from that. And one of my personal composing idols, my favorite composer is Ennio Morricone, and he did a bunch of scoring for what are known now as spaghetti westerns. And this seemed like a perfect opportunity to bring in inspiration from that. Additionally, I wanted to pull from some newer westerns as well. So there's Silverado, which still goes back to a lot of the classical feel of westerns, but also pulling from Django Unchained, a Tarantino film, which the soundtrack parts of the soundtrack are composed by Ennio Morricone, but not all of it. And I thought that's a was a great thing. So integrating the old with the new, obviously, because it's taking the plot and moving it into a more contemporary setting. So I wanted callbacks, but also uh, grounding in the contemporary as well. So my design concept, what I pulled from this, I wanted it to have a cinematic feel. I wanted the audience to feel like they're watching a film in a way, at least partially. Um, Now the play is comedic sometimes, but in the places where it's not necessarily comedic, I really got this sense of sort of grandiose feeling. Um, and once it calls back to that cinematic feel. So I wanted to make that happen. Wanted to make the audience feel like they're watching the play on the silver screen. So it once again kind of a callback to this classical era in film, but also at the same time keeping the contemporary in there and keeping cognizant of the contemporary. And I was trying to figure out how this is obviously an aspect of the play is how it feels like a film, and specifically is calling back to these old westerns. And I was trying to figure out what role does this play in the actual story? What role does this play in the actual story? So I was thinking, it talks about the American dream, but it also never really actualizes the American dream. And the one place where you see something that's, iconic for the American dream, this, white picket fence house and, a kid and a wife and all that stuff is not a positive point. In fact, it's basically the lowest point in the script. This is where Naomi sees her father, and then but he doesn't see her. He's moved on, right? And so these aspects that are from the beautiful North, America, in this play, they're not framed as something that she really wants. In fact, it's Naeli's journey is finding out that what she thought she wanted was not what she wanted, and what she really needed was already with her, and that her own culture. In fact, the people she brings back with her, she doesn't bring back any Americans. She brings back other Mexicans she's found on the way, and Mexicans who decide at the end they want to come back, you know, and that's her journey, is figuring out that, she went away to find out that she really wanted to come back. Now, she never really has this idea of like staying in the beautiful North, but once again, she has it in a positive light at the beginning as this like great thing. She sees it watching the movie, The Magnificent Seven, but she kind of finds out that that's a lie. And I wanted to point out that right there is a reality for a lot of people who come here, especially from Mexico, that find out that the American dream is not necessarily something that's available to them. But I wanted to show that that's, you don't have to give up your culture. In fact, that's where your strength comes from. So framing that as really the thing to romanticize, and that's what the play does. And I wanted to make sure that that was the thing that was cinematic. The elements that come from Nayeli, those are the things, that I wanted to accentuate, that it's not the beautiful North really, it's Tres Camarones. So that's where my design comes from. Now we go into some of the technical stuff. Here's my plot. I used software to make sure that it had a good complete spread over the audience, but also that I could get a good stereo image just about no matter where you are in the space. I think I did a pretty good job making sure that stereo's in there. And that I wanted that stereo because that's something that you have in a movie theater, and I wanted, bring that movie theater experience in, right? And specifically stereo mapping to give it that cinematic experience, but also gives me an opportunity to move sound, since the original set here, it wasn't exactly a set that was set. It was going to be moving in it, lots of stuff moving in and out all the time, because we switch locations so often. Interestingly enough, in our final product, while we can switch between these different locations, they're backgrounds, right? And so what sound was going to do originally is fill in where the set couldn't fill in, and somewhat serendipitous that there was still a lot of stuff that set couldn't fill in because of this new situation we're in. Even though we could film it and have these locations there, so switching between it and having something there was totally possible, but we couldn't have the amount of actual set on the stage that we wanted because we had to keep things socially distanced. So there was still a great opportunity for sound to fill in with the ambiance of the locations and fill in stuff that's going on off screen. And stereo mapping is something I was able to still keep in the final product as well. Foley, now while we couldn't have live Foley now in the final product, there's still somewhat Foley because of stuff that I had to fill in with natural sounds versus recorded stuff. What I had wanted was some live sound for the actual stage production to also kind of like liven up the pre-recorded stuff, because when you have a combination of the two, it gives body to the whole thing, which was something that it was going to be somewhat lacking considering how much the set was going to be moving out. We needed to have some kind of like concrete stuff that people could bite into. Also, Foley gives opportunities to heighten comedic moments, which I definitely wanted to do, and is also a hallmark of the spaghetti western genre, is having these kind of they're exaggerated Foley, but they're still Foley. And here's where I could exaggerate stuff a little bit more with effects, and fill in where the Foley couldn't. An example of an exaggerated effect was the karate noises from Nayeli. But also wanted to make sure that these effects are contributing to the cinematic aesthetic, and so I'm pulling from a lot of that spaghetti western stuff uh, to get that cinematic bit in there, and to exaggerate certain things. Also, it was going to have to fill in for automobile sounds and environmental ambiance, which was something that was already going to have to do on the stage, and it actually still had to do over Zoom. Scoring was probably one of the biggest things and something that I was focusing on mostly, partly because it's the section that takes the longest, but also because that's a big part of the aesthetic for both these films, and it's something that is explicitly mentioned in the script itself. There's locations where there's supposed to be epic Western music. So I was drawing my compositional inspiration from Ennio Morricone's work, but also I wanted to draw from Tarantino's work in the way that he combines both stuff that fits with the style, but also it pulls from modern stuff. Now, here there was opportunities where it had to pull from modern stuff because that's what the script called for. In my opening sequence, when we have the Narcos come in, it starts off with an orchestral thing, something that sounds like a soundtrack, but then it transitions and the music melds into a Kanye song. So there's this playing back and forth, making sure things are contemporary, but also we have callbacks. And that right there is how I put it together, and that's what I wanted it to be. Interestingly enough, there was a lot of things about Zoom that kept a need for a lot of the aspects of my design. So, hope you guys enjoy Into the Beautiful North.